Right now on the National Weather Desk, in the dark, hundreds of thousands without power across Texas as severe storms topple power lines across the state.
This, unfortunately, will be a multi-day power outage situation.
Tornado heartbreak. A woman and her mother are killed protecting children from the violent storm.
It's hard to explain. It's hard to comprehend.
Extreme heat. What can be done to protect those who work outside during the hot summer months?
Have workers take a break in the middle of the day.
After the floods, 2 historic disasters lead to a Maryland city to take action.
7, 8, 9 feet of water in their buildings.
And our social media ROLOGY helps you better understand how weather impacts your life.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Steve Rudin from WJLA in Washington, D.C. It will likely be days before power is fully restored across Texas. This morning, nearly 400,000 homes and businesses are still without electrical service after severe storms blew through parts of the state. The number is down from more than 1 million. The blockbuster storms arrived early Tuesday morning with powerful winds and pounding rain. A teenager working at a construction site was killed during the storm. A wind gust of 77 miles per hour was measured at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. This all followed a weekend of wicked weather that killed more than 20 across the country.
We're worried about more trees falling, especially because we went out without power. We was without power maybe for 2-3 days.
Toppled trees litter this man's neighborhood after a tornado moved across central Texas last week. He's worried more severe weather this week may bring another round of damage. In Colorado, the story Tuesday was hail and lots of it. More than 1 inch accumulated in Greeley, just north of Denver. Golf ball-sized hailstones fell from a thunderstorm that hardly moved for more than an hour. And then there's a threat of additional storms on the way later today. The greatest risk for strong to severe storms this afternoon stretches from eastern Colorado to the Canadian border. A much larger area has been placed under a marginal risk, including 5 largest cities in Texas. Any storm that develops over the region may produce hail and damaging winds. An Oklahoma man lost his wife and mother when a tornado struck their home Saturday night. Remarkably, his 3 children survived. C.J. Macklin is in Pryor, Oklahoma with the story of a grieving family looking for answers.
It's hard to explain. It's hard to comprehend knowing what it looked like before versus the house that used to sit over there is now in pieces behind us.
A family that moved to Pryor about 2 years ago from Washington State took a direct hit in their trailer home from the tornado in Pryor Saturday night. Now that home as they knew it sits hundreds of feet away from its original spot. A family of 5, a mother, a father, a teenager, and 2 younger children. Adam Lee's mother also lived with them, and when the tornado was heading their way,
my husband was actually watching it, and he actually called his cousin and told him, he said, hey, it's at the Racino. It's headed right for us. He goes, get everybody in the shelter, and he immediately hung up with him and started trying to get everybody in the shelter.
But before Adam could get everyone into the shelter, the wind carried him into the yard and he passed out. He woke up looking for his kids, his wife, and his mother. In that tornado, Tana, his wife, and his mother, Linda Lee, both died. Before his mother died, the father found the kids under his mother's arms as she screamed for help.
The little boy, he's just bumps and bruises. The little girl's got a broken leg and had to have some stitches. And the teenager, she's got some pretty significant injuries.
Thankfully, the children are all on the road to recovery. A foundation has been established to help the family with expenses. Compared to Texas and Oklahoma, Virginia doesn't see many tornadoes, on average under 20 in a year. One struck northern Virginia last weekend, injuring 5 people. A family was trying to seek shelter in their Culpeper County home late Sunday night as the storms arrived. The tornado, with winds upwards of 95 miles per hour, destroyed the shelter they were in. This storm was warned on by the National Weather Service out of Sterling, Virginia.
Well, I looked out the window and I seen the funnel forming over top of my cousin's house, and we all ran for shelter, and after that I don't see nothing. It happened so fast, it was a blink of an eye. We were in the air flipping, and then it was gone.
So this had to have been scary.
Oh yeah, it was. You can't explain it.
The twister also snapped and uprooted trees. NWS survey teams measured the tornado's path at roughly 5 miles long and 300 feet wide. Details of what type of storm hit eastern Iowa late last week are now clear. Meteorologist Garrett Hyatt explains why Friday's big weather maker was so unique.
We do know those storms did meet the criteria for a derecho, which is a line of thunderstorms that produces winds of around 58 miles per hour or greater with a path of about 400 miles in length. Now, that word usually brings up memories of what we saw this past back in August of 2020, but it's the same deal as tornadoes. They're all not treated the same. The winds we saw back in 2020 were nearly 2.5 times stronger than the base criteria. And of course, all the way back in 2021 was the first time that we had a derecho in December recorded in the U.S. Now, that also had about 60 tornadoes across the state of Iowa, which is one of the greatest we've ever also seen for a single day tornado outbreak.
They are more frequent than you would suspect, but the extreme ones like we saw in 2020 and then December of 21, those are the ones that are relatively infrequent. You may get those every 10 years or so. But in terms of a windstorm meeting that derecho criteria, we do get typically one, maybe two in a given year on average.
And since the August 2020 derecho, we've actually picked up around 5 derechos here in the state of Iowa. But this year is rather unique due to the sheer number of early morning tornadoes that we saw across the state of Iowa. So far, we've at least seen around 19 of them between about 3 a.m. and 9 a.m. this past Friday. And that's rather rare since most of our tornadoes obviously usually occur a little bit later into the day when the atmospheric energy is at its peak, allowing for more of those storms to be more atmospheric based. But out of the nearly 2,800 tornadoes recorded in the state of Iowa since 1950, only about 100 of them have been recorded between that same 3 a.m. and 9 a.m. time frame.
When you think of damaging storms, Wisconsin probably doesn't come to mind first. Marlo Lundick reports the state not only sees plenty of tornadoes, but the season also appears to be getting a little bit longer.
So unfortunately, I think we have a couple more weeks and months ahead here where severe weather might ramp up and get worse before it gets better.
Kurt Kotenberg is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Green Bay.
Now we're still in the month of May. The peak severe weather doesn't start until July 4th and runs into most of August. So we have a long severe weather season ahead of us. Lots more warnings, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings definitely possible this season.
He says especially after storms like the one that rolled through Kaukauna.
Yeah, make sure you have that safety and preparedness plan ready to go right now and use this as kind of like a wake up that, hey, severe weather season's here.
Kotenberg says 2023 was the third least active weather year in northeastern Wisconsin. This year is already a completely different story. And with the La Nina climate pattern settling in later this summer, Kotenberg says severe weather season could last even longer.
The impact of that here in Wisconsin, a little bit of a tendency to be perhaps warmer and maybe a little bit of a wetter fall. So we could maybe see severe weather and tornadoes possibly into October.
It's going to be a very hot summer in parts of the United States, and there's a push for additional safeguards for those who have to work outside in extreme heat. The National Desk's Jeff Harris has more.
In the next couple of weeks, another round of record-breaking temperatures are expected to hit the United States.
It's going to be happening, and it needs to be on our radars for dealing with.
An implementation science director, Daniel Smith, tells us extreme heat is exactly what it sounds like.
Whenever the temperature rises to a point that the residents can no longer cope.
But with the extreme heat can come extreme consequences, which is why Smith...
Cool water. We need them to have access to 20-minute breaks, possibly longer breaks, depending on how hot it gets every hour. And we need them to have access to those breaks in the shade, in areas that they can cool off.
Smith says it's also important to forecast a few days in advance. That way, work schedules can get adjusted based off of the heat. Plus, if possible, make cooling stations accessible throughout the day, especially in some northern states where many homes might not have central air.
So just giving people access to air conditioning can be a big thing that we do to protect health.
NASA recently launched the first of 2 research satellites to study the Earth's polar regions. NASA said the data gathered will improve climate models, leading to better outlooks of how climate change will affect sea levels, weather, snow, and ice cover. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, 6 years have passed. We look back at one of the worst flooding events to hit the state of Maryland. And we'll find out how lightning helps plants grow.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look the Northeast. It's a good-looking day in the Northeast today with highs making a run at the low to mid-70s with a nice mixture of sun and clouds. Here we are at about 2:30 this afternoon. Notice a nice-looking day throughout most of New England. Parts of New York get into a little bit of wet weather. It's associated with a little storm system moving through the Ohio Valley. This little bowling ball kind of works its way into New York and into southern New England heading into Thursday. That's about lunchtime. Notice you will be brighter back in New York. Temperatures will have a hard time getting out of the 60s.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We start Wednesday out nice and dry, sun until around the late afternoon. We'll see a good chance for some showers and thunderstorms to move across the area. Nothing severe as we are seeing it, and much drier for your Thursday. Temperatures will still reach around 80 degrees for your Wednesday afternoon before the rain arrives to cool things down. Moving into Thursday, we'll reach the 70s with some lower humidity. The drying trend lasts all the way into this weekend.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. Temperatures in the mid-upper 80s from Birmingham to Atlanta. About 81 in Nashville. Hotter down along the coast in Pensacola at 89 degrees. 95 Jacksonville. Tampa, 96 degrees. Looking at plenty of sunshine across parts of the southeast as we continue to see some high pressure in control. But it looks like as we go through the day on Wednesday, plenty of sun will give way to a little bit of cloud cover over Mississippi and some storms. Next lines of storms will be moving in and Wednesday night into Thursday.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
This water spout was spotted Tuesday from the National Weather Service's Lake Charles office. The spout was over Calcasieu Lake, which is known as Big Lake to the locals. And during the long weekend, early Memorial Day storms lit up the Chattanooga skies. Out west, Mount Hood capped with snow, while the lenticular cloud at its peak resembles an actual cap.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
This week's marks 6 years since a catastrophic flood devastated Ellicott City, Maryland. It was considered a once-in-a-thousand-year flood, but came less than 2 years after another flood, also considered a once-in-a-1,000-year flood disaster. Meteorologist Veronica Johnson shows us that what is being done to prevent another flood from destroying the town.
Main Street in Ellicott City, Maryland became a river 6 years ago when heavy thunderstorm rains produced nearly 10 inches of rain in 2 hours' time. It wasn't the first time. This followed after the 2011 and 2016 devastating floods.
So you can see how challenging it was as the water grew in velocity and volume coming down from the very top of the street and coming up. You saw some of these buildings saw maybe 7, 8, 9 feet of water in their buildings at any given storm over the last 100 years. And so the last 3, which were the most recent, were the ones that I think were the wake-up calls that we needed to come up with a viable, effective flood mitigation strategy. This will be a worldwide example of a flood mitigation strategy that saves lives, saves properties, and saves towns.
Today, Ellicott City, Maryland is years into its Safe and Sound project that consists of 2 flood conveyance projects, one being a mile-long tunnel under Main Street, and 5 water retention projects. This summer, ground will break on the 3rd of 5 retention ponds. They all will work together to mitigate flooding, along with signage, where to take higher ground, tone alert speakers for when flash flood warnings or flood emergencies are issued, and frequent river cleanups.
The first 5 months of 2024 have been very good for most of the area suffering from drought. Meteorologist John Meyer explains how above average rainfall is making a difference in Oregon and elsewhere.
Well, we have had some major developments in the drought monitor over the past couple of weeks. In fact, this is nearly as good as it gets. There are still some pockets where we're looking at abnormally dry conditions in Central Oregon. There's some pockets where things are significantly worse elsewhere across the nation. I mean, getting up to extreme, exceptional down towards New Mexico, Texas, even into parts of Montana. But here in our backyard, things are about as good as they get and significantly better than we have seen in any recent year. Going through every single maybe go back to 2023, 22, especially 2021. That was when we saw widespread drought across the entire state. Things are significantly better here today. In fact, this is the best our drought monitor has looked since November of 2019. But that's kind of cheating a little bit. You go back that far, now we're talking towards the winter season. Last time that it was looking this good in May was in 2017. Heading into the summer season, we are expecting some of that drier air to make its way into town here in western Oregon, and a significant warming trend heading deeper into the summer. Still a lot to keep an eye on here as we make our way into wildfire season, but at least we're getting a nice jump start with a lot of early season rainfall in 2024.
Have you ever looked over a lake and you think you see something floating in the distance? Chances are you're seeing a mirage, and it has weather connections. Syracuse meteorologist Peter Hall has the explanation.
Have you ever seen, either on your phone or maybe in real person, in real life, over a lake or an ocean, what looks like this behind me? A boat, a barge, something like that, that's floating? That can't be right. That's not a UFO, is it? Well, no. It's actually an optical illusion. It's actually called a superior mirage, also known as a fata morgana. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Basically, it's an optical illusion due to a temperature inversion. It's typically a little colder right near the surface of the water, so the light bends, it refracts. So sometimes, like in this particular case, we can have an image like a boat or a barge floating. Sometimes it can actually be bigger than it looks. Also, it could be flipped over and be reversed in its image, literally flipped 180 degrees. So if you're ever by a lake or ocean and see something peculiar on the horizon, this is probably your answer.
Now that temperatures are heating up, you may want to make some adjustments at home. Your ceiling fan is one of them. Meteorologist Will Henney explains.
So I just turned off my ceiling fan, and as you can see, it was spinning clockwise. So even I have to do this as a reminder every year. And in case you didn't know, on your ceiling fan, there's a little switch right there. I'm going to turn it the other direction. And in the summertime, you want your ceiling fan going counterclockwise. That pushes air downward. You get that cooling effect. And now it should be good. And yeah, I'm standing beneath it. Get that nice cool air coming right down. There's your reminder.
All right, and time now for a segment we call Social Meteorology. This is where we highlight some of the interesting and informative social media posts from our team of 200 meteorologists. Today we'll look at lightning and emergency weather alerts on your phone. But first, Tara Blake on how humidity impacts our bodies.
Why does it feel like we sweat so much more, or that we can't cool down when it's hot and humid? Well, there's a reason for it. So typically when we're hot, our pores open up, releasing the salt in the water. And as it evaporates, the heat is being released from our bodies and we're cooling down. So it's like our own personal air conditioner. So on dry, hot days, the water is able to evaporate quickly, while on very humid days, because the air is so saturated, it's clogging our pores, essentially turning off our cooling system. And when sweat evaporates slowly, that's when the body heats up, and that's when we start to have problems. We feel like we're suffocating in our own skin. Well, your skin is unable to breathe. So the best thing to do, make your way into air conditioning if you can find it, or wear sweat wicking clothing, even in summer. That helps to draw that moisture to the fabric and allow your body's air conditioning system to work and cool you back down.
If you ever shocked your hand on metal, that's essentially small lightning. Air is an insulator between positive and negative charges, and when the difference in charges becomes too great, the insulation breaks down, and there is a rapid discharge of electricity. Lightning strikes the tallest object in an area, so avoid empty places like fields and parking lots.
The two most important things to remember during thunderstorms and for lightning in general is stay inside and just don't be in an open field. I'm meteorologist Ryan Gold.
How to turn on WIA alerts for severe weather. You're going to go to your settings app and then go to notifications. When you get there, you're going to have to scroll all the way down past all of your apps. Then click on emergency alerts and make sure all of these are turned on.
As we head to break, a flight over Asheville, North Carolina, nestled in western North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains.
Well, a very good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Most of the Midwest dry for the day today. We have some rain showers across the Ohio Valley moving their way out to the east. And then tomorrow, got some thunderstorms starting to move their way back in from the west for us. So this is a look at your Thursday. Dry across a lot of the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. The showers and storms continue to work their way to the east as we head into Friday. So that'll be over towards the Ohio Valley for part of the weekend. But the rest of the plains looking a little warmer and drier for the weekend.
Good Wednesday morning to you, meteorologist Chris Suchan. We'll look at our forecast across the region and on the lookout through the day for a couple of thunderstorms once again with some wind gusts and some hail potential. That includes Little Rock through Shreveport in the Houston area, Austin. There's a marginal severe weather outlook, level 1 out of 5. Highs will be in the 70s and 80s for most. And then in Thursday's forecast, another chance for some big storms. A level 1, level 2 out of 5 severe risk, North Texas, Oklahoma for wind gusts, hail as we round out the day.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Wednesday morning, too. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Quite a range of temps this time of year between the 58 in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle and the 103 out of the Valley of the Sun today in Phoenix, Arizona. We'll see thunderstorms pushing through Salt Lake City as the system dips toward the Four Corners area. Lots of sunshine around California with temps back into the 60s and 70s between San Francisco and LA. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
And check out this photo. A viewer capturing the moment lightning struck the Washington Monument last weekend. It happens several times a year, often with very little fanfare. But 3 years ago, a strike damaged the electronic access system, forcing the National Park Service to close the monument for a short time. Did you know lightning can be good for your plants? Meteorologist Sharon Ray explains from central Missouri. And as a side note, you're going to clearly hear all the cicadas that have emerged in the background. They're quite loud.
Spring thunderstorms have brought much needed rain to the area, helping our plants grow. But did you know that lightning is also beneficial to plants through a process called atmospheric nitrogen fixation? In the air, we have nitrogen molecules. Those molecules are made up of two nitrogen atoms tightly bond together. But the energy from lightning is able to separate those. That nitrogen has a chemical reaction with oxygen in the air and forms nitrates, which are diluted. Those are carried down to the earth with the rainfall and into the soil, creating a natural fertilizer, which is good for our plants.
We'd love to share your unique weather content on social media. Please send it to us. And thank you so much for looking in this morning. I'm glad you were able to join me. I'm meteorologist Steve Rudin from WJLA in Washington, D.C. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Good day.